All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the 1200 subscriber Q&A. Today I'm going to be answering a few of your guys' questions. Thank you so much for submitting. So let's get to it. 1200 subs. I've been doing this less than a year that I've been consistent with it. So super stoked for all you guys following along and all the support and all that good stuff. And today we just had 5 questions, so I'll rip through them. And yeah, feel free to leave more questions in the comments of this video and I'll answer them on the next one. So let's get it started with my man Eddie Spaghetti 919. I actually filmed Eddie surf a few weeks ago here in Popoyo. Good dude. Came down, him and his wife, and yeah. So his question is don't ride a too small board overblown? I just moved to a 6'2" and it unlocked my surfing. So I agree with this. I think it is overblown. I think the key to surfboard selection is actually to get used to riding a variety of different boards, because with each board you're able to feel different things. So it's pretty common that when we get a new board, it feels much better because there's a certain part of the old board that we're overcompensating with. So for example, if you really struggle with catching waves, then yeah, getting a board that's a bit longer, has a bit more volume will help. But if that's not the thing that's holding you back, if, say, what's holding you back is you're not like able to really pocket ride that well, you can't really feel into the wave very well, and you want something that's more responsive, then yeah, feeling a smaller board is important. It will help you. And for me, the biggest thing was just being able to have confidence in the water with the board I had. And whenever I went into bigger surf, just having like a smaller board that I knew I could duck dive with, and I knew like I wasn't being a danger to everyone else in the water, that was super important for me. So I went to a short board very quick, and a lot of people on the internet love to say that that's sort of why I don't have the world's best style or whatever, but I really disagree with that. I think you can get used to surfing on a short board and then progress your style later. I think the reason for me not having the best style in the world is because I'm just haven't been doing it that long. And I've just noticed even over the past few months, my style and my flow has gotten way better, and that's all been on a short board. So yeah, I would say it is overblown, and I know many people that have gone right to a short board, just like good athletes, gone right to the short board and figured it out. So yeah, I think it is kind of like beginner jargon, and it's just like a one-size-fits-all solution, which I don't really like in any situation. We're all different. We all have different backgrounds, different abilities, different flexibility, and all that stuff. So yeah, I think at least to feel a smaller board, totally recommend it. Yeah, keep it up, Eddie. Keep surfing. Hope to see you back in Nicaragua soon. Okay. My guy Philip Pierce 9680. Name a few beginner-friendly breaks outside of the U.S. Awesome question. So the beginner-friendly breaks that I've gone to outside the U.S. are pretty much all in Central America. I would say my other travels have been in East Asia and Indo, and those are all pretty legit breaks. So Central America beginner breaks that I'm familiar with. First trip was down to Nosara. Super cool like beach break where it's just like gentle peaks rolling in all along the beach, and it's a sand bottom, so you're sweet there. In El Salvador actually, and so you have right next to Punta Roca, it's called El Paz. It's a really good beginner break. So you have Punta Roca, which is a super legit wave, and then on the other side of that is El Paz, and that wave sort of like bends around this corner into a bay, and very chill wave. So that's a good one. El Paz, Nosara. I've seen videos of like Santa Teresa. I haven't checked it out myself, but I have a friend who lives there, and yeah, she seems to be crushing it, and beginner surfer as well. And then here in Nicaragua, like Beginner's Bay here, I mean, the name doesn't lie. When it's like, 1 to 2 foot at Beginner's Bay, it's like the best beginner spot you could possibly find. Because just these long rolling waves, and yeah. So, yeah, that's 3 or 4 beginner spots outside the U.S. hopefully you're from America, Philip, or North America, and you can get down to one of those spots and surf it up. Epic. So, Jake Keeling, from Jake Keeling, living options for a couple staying in Nicaragua for the swell season, 3 to 4 months. Awesome question. So, damn, this construction's wild. Okay, awesome question. If you are coming down here 3 to 4 months, I would say your best bet is to just get something short term, book something short term, like say a week when you first get down here, and then do your best to like post in Facebook groups. That's the way I was able to find my long-term accommodation, because opportunities really open up once you get into town and know the community, if that makes sense. So if you can, look into it, look into the Facebook groups before you go to whatever place in Nicaragua, and just ask around, see if someone's renting something out. But the reality is that the accommodations here are cheap, especially compared to the US. So it makes sense to sort of get something for a week, scout out the area on foot, as opposed to like locking something in for a few months and having it be like a crappy accommodation, or like you don't know the area well and you choose a bad area. So I would say, yeah, like get familiar with the area for like a week and then find something long term. That usually works out for people. Sweet. Okay, next question. Redbeard808. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your skills and how far do you think you will go? This is an interesting question. I really like this question. The funny thing is, I would say I would rate my surf skills at the highest point when I was like 3 months into surfing and still pretty ignorant about what it takes to be a good surfer and how many levels there are to surfing. So I went from like, I'd say at that point, like 2 years ago, I was like 3 months into it and I was like just starting to figure a few things out. I would be like, oh, yo, I'm like next to a pro surfer. Like I got a few more months, then I'm a pro surfer. At that point, I would have said I'm like an 8 or whatever. And like the guys that I see like doing all these crazy tricks, like, yeah, I just need to figure out a few things and then I'm there. But then you sort of have this slope of disillusionment when you're learning a new skill, and you realize just how much goes into learning it and just how much goes into what the best in the world can do, and how those guys make it look so easy when it's so not easy. So I don't know, like if you say like 1 is someone who's never surfed before and then 10 is John Florence, like I think I'm a 6 at least, because I'd say I'm above half. If you took up like the half the population of surfers, yeah, I'd say I'm in the top half. But there's clear levels. I mean, and then you say like, okay, a pro level surfer, anyone who's getting paid to surf is like a 9. And then you just got guys who rip, who, you know, there's like 10,000 guys who just absolutely shred in Australia who don't get paid to surf or anything. So that's like an 8. And then a 7 would just be like, yeah, just random locals all around, probably like that range. And yeah, I'd say I'm right in that next category. So, and then, yeah, other half of that question was, how far do you think you will go? Yeah, I feel like I'm just at the beginning, really. There's definitely diminishing returns, though. I think I was able to get from a 1 to a 6 in 2 years, but I think it might take me another 2.5 years to get to a 7, another 2.5 years to get to an 8, or whatever, 5-10 years to get to an 8. And then that like 9-10 range, I don't think really, that's like, you know, pretty special. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm a 6 now. Getting to a 7 or 8 would be dope. But yeah, it's not really a comparison game for me. It's just surfing's always been an internal pursuit. So like just trying to become the best surfer I can be, which I know sounds cheesy and is annoying. But yeah, that's truly what I'm going for. Just like push myself and like sort of, I want to, at the end of the day, I want to like look back on my like surf career, if you would call it that, and be like, I left it all out there. That's sort of my goal. So, yeah. Okay. GRXG. I assume it's Greg with an X. Underscore Pickin. What would you recommend an intermediate surfer to focus on to allow the maximum progress? Great question. The way I think about surfing is at each level there's different bottlenecks. So when I was first starting to surf, the bottleneck was I wasn't a great paddler. I needed to get into paddle shape to be able to paddle around, put myself in the position, read waves well, and catch waves. And then once I became a better paddler, it was the takeoff. I had to really perfect the takeoff. I had to practice my takeoff. I would do it before bed, on land, just practicing that motion, doing cobras, pop-ups, like repping up the takeoff, the takeoff, the takeoff. That became the thing I needed to focus on because that was the thing that was tripping me up. And then I became a better paddler. I became better at taking off on waves. And the next thing was then my bottom turn. And generating speed and pumping. These are things I couldn't do once I was on the wave. And so it's all about like just progressing in that order and getting those reps. So like paddling first, takeoff second, bottom turn third, pumping fourth, and then you build from there, right? Like the bottom turn and then pumping on a wave are like the two those are like the first parts of a wave, right? Because you're either going to take a wave and ride the slope down to gain speed, or you're going to take the high line and generate speed on the high line by pumping. And then from there, you start to add in the top turn. You start to add in the roundhouse turn. And then you try and just build and build and build and build. And that's what I would say. That's what I've done. I've just noticed where the bottleneck is in my surf progress and focused on that. Once you improve that, move on to the next thing. And the fun part about it is that they build on each other. So it's really frustrating when you can't pop up because you can't practice riding the wave, right? But then once you break that barrier of being consistently able to paddle really well and pop up really well, if you do those two things and duck dive really well, then you set yourself up in such a good position to progress. Because if you think about it, if you go out and you catch 15 waves versus, the next guy who's not as good of a paddler who can catch 3 waves, think about how much better at wave riding you're going to get. Because it's all about reps and, pushing yourself. So there it is. I hope that was helpful, guys. Thank you for asking those questions. I thought they were great questions. And, that's a wrap. 1,200 subs. Let's go. Thank you guys for tuning in. And, this is epic. 1,200. Probably next time I see you, it'll be like 12 million, something like that, at least. So, peace.